Who's ready for some tea time with Tori? Hey guys, welcome to another episode of HSTV, Home Staging TV channel. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Tori Toth. With me, I have an amazing panel today answering your home staging questions. We are all put together because we are about to embark on a week of the Business of Real Estate Intensive Retreat. Woo! We have some amazing home stagers and real estate agents joining us this week to talk about their business and how to grow it. Yes. And I'm super excited because I asked the question, what do people have questions about? And I asked this on Facebook and in other social media platforms. So we're going to dive into it. Tea time with Tori. Who's ready? Yes. They have one house full of inventory, and they're asking the question, should they get more inventory to kind of be ahead of the game if they get another staging, or should they just kind of save their money?
I think there's a lot of questions somebody would need to kind of answer for themselves within their business model to figure out if that makes sense for them or not. For myself, as I started my business, I knew where I wanted to be. I was growing my business. I knew that I was going to be a full service staging company with a warehouse and have enough inventory to take care of the business that would come through the door. So I continued to reinvest within my business as I grew and bought as I needed. And my mindset was, if I need it, I'm going to purchase it for the job that's ahead of me. And I wasn't going to have a ton of inventory sitting around that I'm not using. But as I needed it, I bought it to grow my business. But I knew that's where I was headed. For some people, it might be, I don't know that I want to have a really large business. I don't want to have the warehouse and so forth. So you need to figure out how large your business is going to be and know where you want to end up. But if you're growing your business, then yes, you should start. And I would say out of each job, they need to set money aside to put back into their business. This needs to be mindful and not just go take a large bank loan and get more inventory than you need. You need to kind of grow strategically and as your business allows, so that you don't end up, it costs you money to house that inventory. So you want to make sure that you're not over purchasing and you've thought all of those things through.
And how big is your company and what you're talking about right now? Because you've got a pretty sizable warehouse inventory.
I have a 10,000 square foot warehouse. Currently, I've been in business 16 years. Started like everybody, with a sofa and built out from there. But so we have a 10,000 square foot warehouse. We can fully stage 35 to 40 houses at any given time. We typically have somewhere around 20 to 25 out at any time. So I have enough that I can do whatever style the house calls for. So I have choices. You don't want to be known as, the one trick pony. Every house looks the same. You only have one set of furniture and it just moves from house to house, because every house is not the same and the same inventory won't work in every house. So you do need to have enough choices.
I think that the first step is you have to go back to the basics. If you haven't created your business plan, that's where you need to start. And your business plan should identify, do you want to own inventory or not? Because there's a lot of options. If you want to just own the accessories and the artwork and have someone else supply the furniture, that's an option as well. But you have to be very purposeful about it, because it's a very dangerous game to just start buying anything that's random, that's on sale. I think we've all been caught there. Yeah. Know, right? This is pretty and it's on sale. And then you've used it exactly one time in your staging. So definitely making sure that you're buying kind of on not necessarily on an as-needed basis, but as your company's growing strategically and being very purposeful about it. I agree about putting money aside from every job in order to be able to buy the items that you want to purchase. But at the same time, you also want to make sure that you are buying things that are on brand. So as you were saying, there's different
longevity.
Right. There's different houses, obviously, different styles out there, but you still have to create what your actual look is going to be. It doesn't mean it's going to be the exact same in every house, but there's going to be certain things you will do and you won't do, and you want to make sure that it reflects your brand at all times.
One of the things that I heard talk about was how to buy the inventory. And, I did the vacant side of the business for 10 years. And I look back and it's like, oh, I could just do a whole thing about all the mistakes not to do when buying inventory. And one of the things I really took away from the talk was when you're purchasing things, when you have this sofa and 2 chairs as you're starting, maybe the next thing that you buy are 2 chairs that work with that sofa, but a different look. And then you start building so that you can interchange and change things around so that, that sofa has 4 or 5 different lives, but everything is kind of work outable. And I know different people have different color palettes and things they like to work with. So I think it's important to keep that in mind when you're purchasing. And then things like vases and those types of things, large scale things, keep them nice and simple, right? So go with your whites, go with your darks, and then maybe just a few key sizzle items. But I've seen, and this is something I did, big mistake, fell in love with some really funky pieces. They worked in 2 houses in 10 years. Yep. And so it's keep things, get big things, don't get anything smaller than a grapefruit, doesn't photograph well. So those are just a couple of the things that I made the mistakes, baby, because the definition of experienced is you've made the mistakes, and I'm a very experienced stager.
And I do like this kind of a follow-up question, but so they're asking is it a good idea to own your inventory or rent it?
I think, again, it comes down to your business model, what overhead you want to have. You have to really stop and think about what that looks like for you, what it takes to own furniture. You have to house it. You have to insure it. You have to be able to turn it.
You have to move it.
Right.
You become a moving company.
You do. You have to, then you're going to need, movers, truck, all the other things. Or you can say that's more work than I want to do or more overhead than I want to have. Mm-hmm. And that's perfectly great if that's where you want to be. So it's really is a personal decision. The one other thing that I would add is that if you plan to grow to the place that you're going to need a warehouse, because we know our fees are structured to what we need to be able to make a profit. You need to start in the beginning knowing what you're going to need to cover the cost to have that overhead, because if you don't charge accordingly, you can't get there. So for the stagers who are like, oh, well, I don't have all that overhead, so I can charge much, much less and get those jobs and compete and get the job maybe away from somebody who does have that kind of overhead, you will never be able to grow to the place that you can have the warehouse. You're not going to be able to jump your pricing. So if that's your goal, if that's where you want to be, you need to be strategic in your pricing and that you're setting that money aside for that.
The other thing that I was going to say about that is also it depends when you're starting out, depends on what your financial situation is. I was very fortunate that I worked a second job that could pay my bills. My mortgage was paid, my car payments were paid. I had my bills covered. Mm-hmm. So anything that I made in the business could be reinvested back into the business.
2 years total reinvestment in the business.
Yeah, and I did the same thing.
Because I'm actually dealing with a lot of people like that. So they have a full-time job still, and this is their part-time job, right? And this is my own question, guys. Okay. So when do you draw the line, right? And say, I'm all in, or I'm not, Yeah.
So, and I don't mean to be hogging the answers, but I mean, this is something, I get this question all the time. And what I can say is that for me, initially, I actually thought when I need to hire other people, that's when I need to quit my job. That was actually not right. I had employees before I left my job because I needed those employees to be able to support the business so that I could take on more business myself to bring in the income to make up for what I would be losing by giving up my second job. I think everyone's going to, I think you just you're going to know when that tipping point is. I think ideally, if you're trying to transition into any new career, you want to try to have the flexibility in your full-time job that's technically paying the bills to be able to grow the other one. So for example, if you're working every day from 9 to 5 and you're running a staging business, you're going to find it challenging to do a vacant house stage. So you can't model your business based on doing that because you've only got evenings and weekends available. So that's more of a consultation type business, maybe some small accessory packages, but you're not spending an entire day with movers because you're not going to get movers at 6 o'clock at night or on a Saturday afternoon to move those items.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say. To me, it's about making the decision, making the plan. Shauna Lynn was talking about a business plan. To me, you've got to set the parameters and say, when I make X amount of dollars, or when I reach whatever threshold that is, it has to be your intentional decision to say, this is when I'm going to do it, and you plan for that. You kind of start with the end in mind and work backwards. One point about the inventory, I think if you're starting out, the best thing you can do is build relationships. Because when you really get to know people in the industry and the different people who can maybe, like you, maybe you would rent it out to a starting stager so that that's additional income for you, and it helps out someone that's starting out.
We called it ghost staging.
And so, what's that?
We called it ghost staging.
I love that. Yeah. And so
I'd be the face of it, but they'd be doing all the stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So to me, it's about the relationships more than when you're getting started. It can be very overwhelming, as we all know.
Right.
So make it simple and go step by step. But building relationships is the heart of business, and not just with clients, but with other people in the industry.
That's really smart. That's really smart. One of the things I wanted to point out too is that you guys know that I don't do the vacant end of the business. I focus in on the occupied side, and that's one of the things I'm helping my students transition through. Is I explain to them, if you have a good quality product from day one, and you're not just doing things, kind of making things up as you go, and you're not really quite sure, and get good quality information that you're going to provide to them so you can charge a good quality rate, because you'll be truly worth it. And then what you can do is you can start looking back and decide, okay, once I'm doing, like for me, it's consults. I always look at 2 hours, that's one unit, because I make so much every 2 hours. And I just look at that, and you just determine how many units a week do I need to have in order to have the income coming in. And then that's when you hit that mark. So it's just like you were saying, Judy. So, but it's like changing the shape of the money and realizing I've got brand new stagers who are coming to me. And the thing is, they want to buy inventory and things. And so I say to them, they don't have the money. I said, don't go into debt up front. What you do instead, build that consultation business, which will build a relationship with realtors and others. Build that, get the money coming in, set that money aside. Then when you want to start doing this, buy the inventory. Or start by renting first, getting used to the process. Then you maybe start purchasing accessories and things, build your inventory there, and then consider that, because you don't have to do the vacant side anymore to have a staging business. I don't do it at all. And I have it's a great business model.
I do the same. I mostly do consults. I built my business working with real estate agents when nobody in Massachusetts was even staging. And real estate agents pay me for the consults. I don't even have a website right now, which is not advisable. But it's because I'm building my coaching practice, and it's relationship building with the real estate agents and showing the value that I can actually bring to them to help them grow their business. Because whenever you're working with anyone, it's all about them. And another point I wanted to make is, because I coach a lot of women who, like you guys, they're at that time when they're not sure when to go from full-time job to full staging career. And part of it is setting up the strategy, building those relationships and all that. And their time is so limited. And to the point of they should be doing more consults, I talk to them a lot about that. And they don't understand what a great business model that is. You can't do vacants if you're working full-time, because you can't be there for people. And the other thing is, part of what these women really have to do at this point is take a huge leap of faith. They have to set up everything, but there's a point where it's going to be scary, and you have to do it anyway. And you have to decide to do it and then figure it out. So instead of figuring it out and then deciding to do it, like, you lay all the groundwork down, but you have to make a decision, and you have to decide you're going to believe in yourself, and it'll work.
So I would say, Bobby, why don't we talk about that for a second? Building confidence. And then Judy, why don't you take it too?
The whole thing of confidence, this is one thing, and you guys know, it's like so many times people say, oh my gosh, you're so confident. But I'm telling you, there are situations where, I'll go in and I don't have confidence because I don't know much about what's happening around there. So I don't feel competent. So one of the best things you can do for confidence is, first of all, educate yourself. If you want to be a home stager, don't just wake up tomorrow, poof, I'm a home stager. Find out about the business. And now there's opportunities where you can, piecemeal together business ideas and different ways of functioning, or you can invest in yourself and go through a program so that you can actually find out soup to nuts, how do I run a business, right? But that's the confidence is education, and then it's experience. So it's another thing too. Education without experience is merely theory, because you know what they teach you, it'll give you a nice idea, but the reality is way different when you walk through that front door. Am I right? So so there's that whole education portion, and then the experience. So the thing is, what do? You practice. You find out if there's somebody you can work with. You find out there's mentorship programs, coaching programs, and things. I have people that come and fly out and spend a day with me. Those types of things. There are opportunities for you to do those types of things. So there's experience, and then there's mindset. Listen, if you go to that front door and you're educated and you've got some experience and you know, okay, you know that you know, but you go to that door and you're thinking, this house is really expensive. Oh my gosh, I don't know if they'll even listen to me. Guess what? When that door opens up, what they read is, why should I listen to her? If you go to that front door saying, okay, gorgeous house, this is going to be a great challenge. I know I can do it. That door opens, that's the energy that goes in. So you're looking at that, and then there's so much to the whole confidence thing. And dress the part. I'm not saying dress all up fancy. We don't have to do that. I mean, I'll dress like this when I'm staging, right? And it's like nothing fancy, but it's professional. And dress in a way, wear the colors that you love, that you feel confident in, everything that you could. And on brand, yeah, you know me. I love my blue, right? So that's totally perfect. So there's the confidence. So what you want to do is you want to have it internally, and then externally you want to have that. But then the key part for me is that third portion is, you know what? Confidence. When people when those realtors, when we build relationship and they place their confidence in you, don't let them down. Don't let them down. You've worked so hard.
And coming from a real estate
Yeah, as a
perspective.
realtor, I can say that I met very few stagers that impressed me. Very few. And because I love decorating and I always consider I staged, even though I didn't have the certification. So for me, confidence, I love what you said about experience. To me, confidence, people think, oh my gosh, you look so confident. How did you get there? Because I took action. That's right. You don't gain confidence, kind of in a bubble in your room thinking about stuff and reading stuff. Like you said, you've got to get out there and do it. And then the other thing is the whole imposter syndrome. Maybe they'll find out that I only staged my own house or my friend's house.
fraud, yeah.
But that's where you start.
That's right.
That's,
Everybody starts there.
I have my HGTV degree.
Yeah.
That's how I became confident enough to stage as an agent. And it got me really great business. And so like you say, when you go to the door and you know that you don't know everything, and you don't have to. One more point on that. Doctors don't know everything. My clients, I'm a business coach for women across all industries. Okay. And it's universal that, they're like, oh, they're going to ask a question I don't know. That's okay. Yeah. The doctor, the lawyer, we don't know all the answers, and it's totally okay. Yeah. So
Well, what do they say? The definition of an expert is not necessarily that you need to know everything. You just need to know more
you
than
need
the
to
people
know
you're
where
teaching.
to go for the answers.
And where to go for the answers.
That's
exactly.
Right. That's right.
20% more than the people around you. Yeah, exactly. That's what makes an expert.